All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for taking an hour out of your day to join Stamped and Klaviyo to chat a little bit about retention email strategies for D2C brands. Stamped has been obsessing over this topic for the last year. I would say we have our loyalty program, we have reviews, we've been partnering with thousands of merchants on how do you optimize your Klaviyo flows to bring those kind of tactics into email and off of just your website. So we've got an hour together today. You're going to hear from Heather and Dan, who are experts from Stamped and Klaviyo, respectively. We are recording, so if you do need to hop off early, no problem. We will send you that in a follow-up. Heather, if you can move to the next slide, I'll go over what we're going to talk about today. Perfect. So we're going to chat a little bit about why retention is such a challenge right now. What's the current e-commerce landscape? You all on the call probably know more about this more deeply than anyone. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts during it, please ask them in the chat. Then we're going to go through some live examples. So Stamped and Klaviyo get to work with amazing brands like yourselves, and we've learned some best practices from that. So we're going to walk through some amazing examples of how brands have used email marketing with Stamped and Klaviyo together to really maximize that retention piece. We're going to show you exactly how you can do that, chat a little bit about the templates that are available for you, and then have a Q&A at the end. So again, some of you submitted questions in advance. Use that chat throughout. We're going to be watching it. We just move to the next slide. My name's Tila. If you have questions, tag me in the chat. I'm the manager of marketing, and I'll turn it over to Heather to introduce herself.
Hey guys, thanks for the awesome intro there, Tila. Excited to have everybody join, share some learnings, have some good discussion today. My name's Heather again. I am our Senior Technology Partner Manager at Stamped, so I get to partner with wonderful platforms like Klaviyo and kind of work together for our merchants to implement some awesome best practices. And I'll hand it over to Dan.
Awesome. Thank you, team. And thank you to everyone who's joining us here today. I'm Dan Goldstein. I am an ISV, so Independent Software Vendor Partner Manager here at Klaviyo. I've been with Klaviyo now for around 4.5 years, so I've seen a lot of change in the space. And we're just so excited to partner with incredible companies like Stamped to allow best-in-class strategy together. So really just excited to dive in and really looking forward to some of the questions and comments that are raised throughout the day. Don't hesitate to let us know what you have to say. And yeah, excited to dive in. Thanks for having me.
Of course, let's get into it. Awesome. So just to set the scene, kind of why we're all here today is to talk about retention and maybe why retention is failing. Big, scary thing going on right now in e-commerce, but don't let that scare you. There's some awesome ways to combat this. And retention isn't failing because marketers don't care about it. It's really failing because the strategy hasn't evolved fast enough to keep up with consumers and what they want and where they want to hear from you. And overall, the cost of acquisition is up. We've been saying that for years now. And meanwhile, we'd see revenue per email tends to trend downwards. And most brands seem to treat retention like an afterthought, really relying on batch and blast discounts instead of those strategic lifecycle touch points. So you end up giving away margin without gaining much of that long-term loyalty. But here's the thing we want to cover today is that you're sitting on this rich mound of data that already tells you who your best customers are, what they love, and when they're most likely to buy again. So Stamped is going to help brands really capture those signals through things like reviews, loyalty behaviors, purchase timing, and then Klaviyo makes it really simple to turn those signals into smart, personalized automations and strategies. So today we're just going to walk through some of those exact email plays that our mutual D2C brands are using to kind of fix this retention problem and how you could then action them with your own data or using our tools together. So first, we're going to take some time again to review those common retention roadblocks as highlighted in the playbook that we put together with Klaviyo, which you'll all be getting as a follow-up after this webinar today. But before jumping in, I want to make note of a few terms you're going to hear sprinkled throughout. I know different companies have their own terms for things, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page. When we refer to plays at Stamped, we're talking about just more general retention strategies. And plays are things that we implement for our customers. We have a whole library of plays that will show you where to find them. But a play could be a flow in Klaviyo. It could be just a dynamic block. It could be segmentation. It's just a general retention strategy when we talk about it. Of course, most of us are probably familiar with flows. Those are the automated emails or SMS in Klaviyo, and they're triggered by some piece of data, whether it's an event. It's kind of the context we'll be talking about it today is the Stamped events, but Dan can go on for the whole slew of different things that can trigger automated experiences in Klaviyo. And then last but not least is repeat. This is a tool within Stamped. It's our lifecycle automation tool. So it's kind of analyzing backend SKU and behavioral customer data and turning that into events that we're then firing into Klaviyo. So repeats kind of our special sauce on the back end there. And then we have a cart component of repeat that creates this really unique in-channel cart experience within email, driving that path to purchase for customers. And I'll show you some examples. But let's get into it. So roadblock number one, probably the number one problem in e-commerce retention. How do we convert that one-time buyer into a long-term customer? The first example we have here is probably a pretty familiar brand. This is Blueland. Their mission is rooted in sustainability. They sell refillable cleaning products to reduce plastic waste. Their business model hinges on subscriptions, right? Because it's a refillable product. We want customers to continue to buy that replenishable detergent packet. And they have the starter kits with the bottles and things like that. So again, rooted in sustainability. But the solution here was for them to create this subscription upsell play powered by Stamp's Prime for subscription trigger that's firing into Klaviyo. So what this is doing is kind of analyzing behavioral and timing data to predict when a customer is likely to subscribe. So comparing it to the rest of the customer base, mapping out patterns. At what point do we think we can kind of push them into that subscription experience, and then use Klaviyo flows to kind of trigger that hyper-personalized messaging. So you'll see here, they're kind of detailing why subscribe, all of the savings and convenience, kind of a summary. And of course, the option to just repurchase one time. We're not going to force anybody into a subscription. So giving that option and then pulling into a really unique in-channel experience to opt right into that subscription. The results were in the revenue here. They drew over $64,000 in revenue. They reached over 220,000 recipients, many of whom were first-time buyers that were then nudged into subscription. So awesome results we love to see there. Moving on, another super familiar brand here, OSEA. They're a clean skincare brand known for their plant-based, sea-inspired formulas, really awesome mutual customer of ours as well. They had a really big goal, which was to convert their sample recipients into full-size product buyers. I don't know if you've ever shopped with OSEA before, but they send amazing like sample sizes of their serums, moisturizers, body oils. So they want to try to convert those sample triers into full-size buyers. So by using some product mapping in the back end with our repeat tool, they're able to actually individually map each SKU to its corresponding product. A lot of marketers may have run into this problem before, kind of in different scenarios where you have to kind of create separate emails or branching logic in order to upsell a related product to the correct SKU. But this ended up being a game changer for OSEA because they could do this all dynamically within one flow with this product mapping in the back end. So any customer who had received a sample was automatically followed up with an email linking them to their own preloaded in-channel cart featuring the full size of the item they purchased and showing them a slew of other items they might be interested in or had previously purchased. And I'll show that on the next slide. But these emails are perfectly timed based on that SKU lifecycle data. So customers were hit just when they're likely to be ready to upgrade to that next product. This drove over $40,000 in revenue directly attributed to this flow in Klaviyo. It had a 50.7% open rate, which definitely smashes kind of the industry average. So super high engagement. And here's that repeat in-channel cart experience. So directly from that email, you're pulled into this kind of personalized shopping experience. So we're noting exactly which product you had previously sampled, giving the option to upgrade to subscription or kind of try out different sizes. We'll obviously show what you've previously purchased and then some awesome recommended products just based on, compared to the rest of the customer base. So that's why the conversion's so high on this. And then from here, it goes straight to Shopify checkout. So not really interfering with anything you have going on existing with your checkout experience. All right, moving on to roadblock number 2, just about inconsistency with repeat purchase. We can't really predict. We want to drive better overall customer lifetime value. So we'll see what Fresh Clean Threads did about that. This is a brand that actually started as a t-shirt subscription company and then eventually expanded into a full line of apparel. Their challenge that they were facing was they really wanted to make reordering more seamless without a ton of manual effort from their retention team. So what they implemented was the replenishment reminder play here. So this is a flow set up in Klaviyo powered by repeat data. If you think about it, t-shirts are kind of personal. Some people might cycle through their t-shirts on a monthly basis. Say they work in a hospital and they, have a need for clean t-shirts all the time. Whereas me, I might hoard and hold on to mine a little longer before I'm ready to replenish. So by triggering this event at a personal level based on when a customer is likely to reorder, again, doing all that back-end analysis, it's a much higher conversion rate because we're timing it based on an individual level. And then from there, sending them to that personalized repeat cart, kind of pre-filled with their replenishment suggestions. This drove awesome results in revenue and open rates. But I do want to mention the holdout test they ran. So they started with a 50% holdout test using Klaviyo A/B testing just to measure performance before really like rolling this out to their customer base. And the results were so strong that they just ended the test 60 days early to roll it out to the whole customer base. They saw a lift of 5.6% in average order value for customers who engaged with this flow, and then a 7.7% lift in 30-day LTV. So that proves real incremental value with minimal time investment from the retention team because this was so automated here. Awesome. Final one in this section here is an awesome brand, Salt & Stone. If you're familiar, they're luxury body care offering high-performing, clean personal care products like deodorants, body mists, candles, you name it. And they had a goal of increasing repeat purchase rate and AOV through smart cross-selling. Their business really hinges on retention and making product discovery kind of key to their strategy, cross-selling into different categories. So they implemented a cross-sell predicted products play. So this was triggered by a primed for cross-sell event fired in from that repeat analysis. So perfectly timed based on buyer behavior and utilizing kind of those dynamic product blocks to send users exact recommendations based on a comparative product mix of what other customers have ordered. And the results here, they saw a 49.3% open rate. And overall, this flow attributed to 32% of all of their revenue for their repeat flow. So this was top performing of all of their retention flows. Perfect. Moving on to our next roadblock, all about reducing churn rates and increasing loyalty engagement. This brand here, Ursa Major, offers gender-neutral clean skincare. Their goal was to prevent churn from their most valuable customers and create just more personalized experiences and encourage, replenishment and easy reordering. So they wanted to just proactively re-engage their at-risk customers through these high-impact emails in Klaviyo that felt authentic and real to their customers. So they implemented a lapse prevention flow. So this reaches customers who are right at that point, their risk of churn, for kind of a last-ditch effort to get them back to replenish. That's an event triggered again by repeat based on their past purchase behavior and analysis there. They were able to make these emails really personalized by leveraging some Klaviyo predictive analytics to dynamically adjust visuals and copy based on predicted gender, and saw that those emails performed much better when they were implementing hero images, based on predicted gender. They were also able to test messaging with and without incentives. So they offered tailored incentives, within certain segments to boost reorders, and they were able to kind of move away overall from discounting. Instead, they chose to offer things like free samples or introductions to new products, and they found that drove overall better retention and helped save their margins a bit. And saw awesome engagement, 46.7% open rate here. So we love to see those results. All right, finally, last but not least, roadblock number 4 is just friction to purchase and too many distractions and calls to action. We'll be talking about this brand here, Black Girl Vitamins. They are a mission-driven health brand. They formulate supplements specifically for the nutritional needs of Black women. They're not just product-focused. They build community through partnerships, scholarships, and advocacy. So they've got a lot going on at their brand, and they wanted to really automate retention. So their goal was to just make reordering feel more personal and easy, avoid that reliance on discounts, and re-engage inactive customers. So by engaging repeat with Klaviyo, they launched a multi-pronged retention strategy. Probably the biggest one here is this replenishment reminder play. So to prompt timely reorders when customers are likely to be running low, this is based on individual order history, kind of time-based on SKUs. Maybe one recipient had ordered a 30-day supply of a daily vitamin versus a 60-day supply of hair, skin, and nails. The timing on those is going to be different. So this allowed them to create one dynamic flow that's going to trigger that event based on individual order history. So that's huge for replenishment. It shouldn't be kind of a blanket 30-day, static time delay. So this dynamic experience really helped with conversion here. They also implemented a late replenishment play. So following up and saying, hey, you missed your reorder window. We want to get you back on track with your regimen, and kind of pushing in that direction, maybe adding some UGC or social proof into that email, and treating those customers and those emails differently, and kind of acknowledging that, hey, you missed your window here. And then finally, driving everyone into that same frictionless reorder experience with the repeat card definitely helped them drive over $600,000 in revenue just from the replenishment flow, let alone the lapse prevention reminders as well. So this approach really allowed them to kind of delegate the revenue driving piece of retention to the automated flows, while the team could focus on that community building and product marketing. Awesome. And I wanted to show exactly how this freed up so much time for them. So this first kind of image here is super scaled out branch logic, at an individual SKU level, which you typically see for a replenishment reminder, but they were able to kind of create a much more seamless and dynamic, just one path, one logic, to time that reorder window perfectly using the repeat tool, so that we don't have the same time delay for each SKU. Awesome. Moving on here, just want to kind of wrap up this section here with some main takeaways. And one of the big questions we got ahead of the webinar was how to build these high converting flows that make customers want to come back. And I say the truth is that most of the best flows, your best flows, aren't going to be new ones. It's going to be just smarter versions of what you're already running. So starting with the right signals. Too many flows are just built on a calendar versus behavior. So avoid that arbitrary timing and rely on behaviors and signals. Second, let's reduce friction in that path to purchase. So the best performing brands aren't necessarily sending a customer back to the PDP or their homepage. They're using an experience like the repeat cart to drive customers straight into that personalized checkout experience, preloaded with what we know they already want and love. Third would be to just test a little bit smarter. Don't just test your subject lines, test actual moments. Maybe a loyalty reminder converts better than just a generic promotion. Is the flow hitting before or after the customer is really ready to purchase? And finally, just segment with purpose. A one-time buyer segment with purpose. So a one-time buyer and a VIP should never get the same message. Use loyalty tiers, order history, and predicted product affinity to make your flows a little bit more tailored and not templated. And the brands we showed today, like OSEA, Salt and Stone, they're not really reinventing the wheel. They're really just getting good at sending the right message at the right time with the right data. So if you walk away with one thing today, it's that your next high converting flow probably isn't a new idea. It's just a smarter trigger, better timing, and fewer barriers to check out. Awesome. I'm going to pass it back to Dan so he can highlight some of the Klaviyo magic happening behind the scenes.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. Really excited to dive in here. And I love what you mentioned there at the end, that, your next high converting flow might not be this like totally brand new idea. It's all about getting smarter and getting more granular with the data, the tools that you have. So really love that call out, especially for anyone here that's kind of thinking, hey, what do we start building, especially as we lead up to BFCM? So we're going to take a bit of a deeper look in here at some of the key Klaviyo strategies. But before we do that, I know we spoke a lot about email today. And of course, probably a lot of us here on the call know Klaviyo as an ESP. Well, we are definitely trying to take that term and throw it away. Klaviyo is a B2C CRM, and this is a quick look at our new marketecture. So if you've already known Klaviyo for an ESP, that's totally awesome. But we want to lean a little bit deeper into our three core pillars: marketing, that I think a lot of us probably know, right? Activation channels, email, SMS, things of that nature, over into service analytics as well. But the one thing I want to highlight here before we start moving on is the fact that when you look at this marketecture slide, you'll see some interesting things, right? Klaviyo AI, the KDP, Klaviyo data platform, of course, span all three pillars. But one other thing here is really, really cool. And you'll see that actually at the bottom layer, those 350 plus app integrations are the foundation for everything that Klaviyo does. And of course, Stamp is a key element to that practice. So as you start to think about building out and leaning into your retention practices, think about those apps that you have or those partners that you work with in the ecosystem. And of course, we rely so much on our ISV partners, our agency partners, SIs, and everything in between to provide these great retention experiences. So just wanted to make sure we all had a quick refresher on, hey, what's Klaviyo up to these days, and maybe where are we going in the future? But if we move over onto this next slide here, one thing I just want to mention is if we think about being hamstrung into one channel, that might put us a bit behind. And with Klaviyo, right, we just want to make sure that you have the ability to lean in to that omni-channel personalization, right? So if you're leveraging Stamped and Klaviyo together, how are you messaging someone, not just in your email and your SMS channels, but how are you speaking to them when you're retargeting them on Meta? How are you leaning into very specific, maybe welcome series that come in from someone who has a high purchase rate, but has maybe never actually subscribed to your email or your SMS, but is actually a VIP in terms of purchase? All of these things are essential to make sure you have the most robust strategy. And that's really where we want to be able to provide that opportunity as a platform. So when we move over to the next slide, this is a great high-level view of how this could work. And again, if you're really just thinking email today, I would definitely implore you to think about, hey, how could I maybe either lean a little bit more into SMS, whether that's on Klaviyo or somewhere else, or maybe even get started with SMS as a channel to begin with. And when we think about this platform and we think about the integrations like Stamp that flow in, we want to make sure that Alexis on this slide has a cohesive experience across all of those digital merchant touch points with continuity at the center. And right, the only way we can really do that is if we have that data platform powering all aspects of this. So whether it's a really in-depth repeat flow for a VIP or maybe someone just signing up, let's make sure that that continuity is at the heart of everything we do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with some of the strategies that we have coming up here in just a second. But again, of course, I was actually the SMS guy at Klaviyo on the partner team for many, many years. So of course, SMS is very, very close to my heart. When we think about driving email and SMS together, right, this is bread and butter. If we have a really cohesive email and SMS strategy, this allows us to have an edge on the competition and feel a lot more confident moving into those high volume times, say BFCM, where the pressure is on, right? And one thing I really want to highlight with having email and SMS in one individual platform is we can do cool stuff like this. Now, on the right-hand side here, you can see that this is an example of a simple product drop, right? A simple price drop where we can have a conditional split in Klaviyo, which is really leaning into, hey, what's the engagement preference of this individual user? And we actually just launched an awesome feature a couple of weeks ago called Channel Affinity, which actually allows Klaviyo's data to essentially tell you what's the best next channel for this individual person, right? Do they prefer email, SMS, push? Are they more likely to respond with an MMS versus an SMS? Do we bring in stamped loyalty data on top of that channel affinity and lean in a little bit more with those maybe needs improvement versus VIPs? Having all the data allows you to make these really granular decisions at scale. And I would implore you, if you're still maybe on the fence with SMS, or you're still kind of, you know, taking an easy step up and kind of growing your list, highly, highly, highly recommend start leaning in and growing your SMS list and email lists right now before BFCM, but we can talk about that. I could probably talk about that for literally an entire webinar, and I have. So always happy to answer questions there. So before I get into some of our other tactics, I just want to take a step back and talk about something that I personally love at Klaviyo, which is RFM. Now, RFM, for anyone who may not necessarily leverage this tool already, stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. Now, this tool is available within Klaviyo's marketing analytics tool set, which is a breakout of our advanced KDP, or maybe also known as CDP functionality within Klaviyo, which is awesome. And RFM actually allows us to lean in and get some of those smarter cohorts of our segmentation. we can flip this on in Klaviyo and actually have a really great understanding of, where are our needs improvements, right? Where are our champions? And I think the best thing about this is that Klaviyo creates these segments for you. But the thing that actually is awesome is those segments don't need to be static. You can layer on those loyalty tiers from Stamped to any of the other associated data flowing in, not just from Stamped, but from our other partners as well, to make these even more granular. And I would love to show you a highlight of maybe how we can lean into RFM analysis in an actual flow on our next slide. Awesome. So we're going to deep dive into a couple of those individual strategies here. Again, we will be following up with a great best practices deck going forward. So please be on the lookout for that and follow up. But one quick opportunity here is leaning in and improving that retention of those one-time buyers, which I know Heather spoke about a little bit earlier on in the day. And this pairs really well with RFM. So as you can see here, if you have RFM enabled in Klaviyo, you can actually create a trigger when someone actually joins that RFM needs attention segment of that current month. And when that segment is actually created, you can see that we can actually lean in and provide them with a super customized customer win-back email, bringing together all of the key data outside of just their RFM segments. But again, that's Stamped loyalty tier, other engagement metrics with Klaviyo, other behavioral data that's flowing in from our other partners. I think that RFM is an incredible tool here at Klaviyo, and it allows you to really just double down on your data strategy inside the Klaviyo platform and then pair it really, really well with our best-in-class partners. I love this strategy. It's one of our crawl strategies. We have crawl, walk, run, sprint here at Klaviyo. If you're ever looking for more information on marketing analytics or CDP, which I know is still one of our newer product lines at Klaviyo, we're always available to dive in and give you a better look at what this does. But I just had to call out this particular use case because I think it's so powerful and can be set up essentially within a day in Klaviyo. So if we're going on a little bit deeper here, we're going to be taking strategies from across the touch points, right? So of course, email, SMS, always the bread and butter here. But I just want to make sure that we're not neglecting maybe some of our other touch points that customers are really looking to dive into. So with that being said, if you are not already connected with Klaviyo and Meta and Klaviyo and Facebook, highly recommend doing this. You can create those lookalike and retargeting ads directly from Klaviyo segments. And again, layer that Stamped data on top of those segments. So if we know that someone is a true VIP and an RFM champion and is purchased at a customer lifetime value over, I don't know, $2,000, we could maybe provide them with a super, super granular ad trying to get them to maybe go to a product that they've viewed or added to their cart multiple times but have never converted, or a really nice complementary cross-sell upsell product that works really well, right? So for example, if you're selling beds or mattresses, it's probably safe to say if someone bought a bed or a mattress and didn't explicitly say it was a gift, that they probably don't need another bed or mattress within the next couple months. But what if we actually instead retargeted them with side tables or mattress covers or anything of that nature? This is really the power of having that data that allows you to lean in with our best-in-class partners at Klaviyo and create really granular experiences, again, across that omni-channel journey. If we move on to the next slide here, we will kind of just fire these around as we get going. One other thing I want to mention here, this is one of our walk strategies, is if you aren't already testing your abandoned cart experience and maybe leaning into the data that we already have, then this is some low-hanging fruit that I really, really implore you to lean into. So when we think about the abandoned cart, this of course is one of like the Fab 5, maybe now the Fab 8 flows at Klaviyo that we implore everyone to have firing at all times. Of course, we want to make sure we adjust this for BFCM a little bit later on, but this is not a BFCM webinar, so we can save that for another time. But as we test the abandoned cart experience, again, change those tones, alter the CTAs, right? Lean in with products, product images or not. Create channel affinity segments alongside stamp data to make sure and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this individual should prefer a, abandoned cart that has a message from the founder versus an image. Really, again, A/B test these types of strategies and layer that data on like building blocks to separate yourself from the competition, especially as things start to heat up leading into the fall months before BFCM, at least here in the States. So if we move on to one of our next strategies, I know we're kind of just picking and choosing them from around the ecosystem, but this is one that's actually really near and dear to my heart. And I get asked a lot of times, Dan, what's your favorite flow, right? Like, what do you love to see be, fired out of merchant accounts? And my answer sometimes is pretty boring, right? A lot of the time people will expect some like crazy back in stock price drop flow that, brings in data from in-person and digital and partners and all of this, these different webhooks, things of that nature. In reality, the welcome flow and everything that's associated with that welcome and onboarding opportunity for whether that be a new buyer or a new subscriber is always going to be one of the highest revenue generating flows that a brand has. And that can be true for email and SMS. But when we think about where these people are coming in from, let's say if you have, or you're working with an influencer on, I don't know, YouTube or Instagram, and they have a specific message telling you, oh, you should go check out this merchant, tell them that I sent you, things of that nature. We can tie that lead, right? So if someone signs up through maybe like a text to join keyword on YouTube or something of that nature, we can tie that sign up with that individual person. And wouldn't it be so cool if we had like a message from that influencer or some specific type of verbiage from that person, or maybe, what they're known for, to add a little bit of an extra layer of personality and granularity in your welcome messages. But the one thing I want to message here is that final message in your welcome series can be an absolute moneymaker, right? This allows us to lean into, again, additional channels. Maybe we get a little bit more personal with this type of message. And again, if we have the data from Stamped, we might be able to provide a last touch final welcome message in that welcome series that does allow someone to convert, or if we don't get a conversion, at least we can collect some information on maybe what their preferences are or what they'd like to purchase in the future. So again, don't sleep on the welcome series. Don't sleep on these welcome flows. They are incredibly powerful. And especially when we think about where's the ingestion, where's the vector, where's everything coming in from? Again, highly recommend optimizing these throughout your summer, moving into the fall months. So I know we spoke a little bit about show hide blocks, which I'm a massive fan of, and we can do so much here. Again, this is probably something that could be its own section within this individual webinar, but this allows us to have a really distinct message to particular groups or segments of your audience that some may see and some may not, without having to make a billion different flows. So for example, right, we can lean in and actually have a specific show hide block that targets the individual looking at the email, right? If you're shopping for something for outdoor activity, probably a good opportunity to not show some like generic type of workplace image. And this can be true for, anything within your flow. So for example, let's say you have a great email strategy and you're growing your SMS strategy. We can create a show hide block that has a button in it where that will only show and say, hey, click this button to subscribe to SMS. We'd love you to join our SMS program. And that button can only show for those that are not consented to receive SMS marketing. It would not show up to anyone else viewing that email. So when we think about that type of show hide logic, I always love recommending to brands, agencies, and anyone else leveraging Klaviyo to kind of honestly take out a piece of paper and just think, what are my key segments and what do they really care about? And how can I make it so that I don't have to double down on work to make sure we have that granularity within the email? Highly, highly, highly recommend creating these universal blocks in Klaviyo. Bring that stamp data in, bring that integration data in, and make it a little bit more bolstered so you can show and hide these as, you know, as those segments view them and interact with them over time. So highly recommend this. I know the stamp team loves to talk about show hide blocks. So I just had to make sure we were leaning into this if you're not leveraging this feature within Klaviyo already. Cool, I'll take a very quick second on this as well. This is one of our run strategies here. I know not everybody leverages a direct mail provider, and that's totally okay. But we want to make sure that we're providing some information that would maybe allow you to, again, differentiate from the pack, especially when that cost of acquisition or maybe even cost of returning customers can be so high. And I know that Klaviyo and Stamped both work with Postpilot and a number of other direct mail providers here as well. And when we think about direct mail, snail mail really does convert, right? And if we think about pairing direct mail with Stamped with Klaviyo products, there's an opportunity to have, say, RFM analysis on a segment that when someone hits that need improvement segment and maybe also down tiers in their loyalty segment, why don't we send them out a direct mailer, especially if they've maybe unsubscribed from one of our marketing channels, asking them back with a really personalized message. Maybe we put a QR code on the direct mailer that goes right back to an email or SMS sign up. And maybe, again, has a very specific promotion just for that individual segment. Again, we want to make sure we have personalization at scale. That's the name of the game, both for Klaviyo and for Stamped. So just start thinking about maybe some of these other channels that might be a bit untapped for you right now. And finally, I think this might be one of, if not one of my last slides, so we will definitely make it count here. This is a continuation on RFM because I think it's that important. Because RFM and AKDP, also known as CDP, AKDP stands for Advanced Klaviyo Data Platform. We love making our own terms here at Klaviyo. AKDP and RFM means that we can just put all of our flows into a supercharged state, right? If we lean into AKDP, if we lean into RFM, if we lean into that data analysis, you can do this without being a data scientist. And that's the key, right? We want marketers to be able to lean into some of these tools that may have been a little bit out of reach in the past, right? Whether it's a data warehouse or a CDP or things of that nature. We want you, if you're in Klaviyo creating flows and you're leaning into your loyalty program and things of that nature, we want you to have this really granular advanced targeting capability as well. So again, if there are any questions about AKDP, RFM, any other type of acronym that maybe we say here at Klaviyo or in the industry, we of course are always here to answer those questions. And of course, we will be sending out a number of these slides from the Klaviyo side, along with some of those other best practices that lean into a number of those roadblocks that Heather and the Stamp team spoke about at the beginning of this session. So super excited to talk a little bit more about that going forward. And if we go to the next slide, I think that might be it. So I will take a step back. Thank you, team. I'll be monitoring the chat. Of course, we'll be here for Q&A as well. And I'll pass it back over to the Stamp team. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Dan. That was so interesting. We have some really good questions in the chat. Before we hop into Q&A, I want to share a couple of resources. One, we are recording today. So for those of you who asked, I want to go rewatch this section. Maybe you want to watch it on half speed so you can go through each slide line by line. We'll send that out. And then the other piece, Heather, if you can move to the next slide, I have 2 ways for you to implement these kind of tactics really simply. The first are branded flows. These are built into Klaviyo, and they're a way for you to actually implement what we talked about today for repeat and for loyalty very quickly. You can set up a flow, put your own events, your own conditional splits. And then to kind of teach you the concepts, if you can move to the next slide, Heather, we have a place library. This is a open source resource for you. It's free. You don't need to enter email or do anything to access it. And it has every single flow that we talked about today, exactly how to set it up, which events to edit, and how it works best with email or with SMS. So scan the QR code here. This is definitely one worth bookmarking, and we will follow up via email after so that you can make sure you hop in here. Here at Stamped, we're updating this all the time. So adding new flows in, finding new ways to use all of this customer data. All right. And then I will also plug here that we've teased this a few times. Stamped is working on something new. So currently we're actually working on a rebuild of our software that will integrate lifecycle marketing, reviews, and loyalty. We are in a wait list before our beta right now. So if you're curious to check it out, scan this top QR code, and then you can actually apply for the wait list. First 250 applicants get 50% off their first year on the new. Sophia, that's all right. If you didn't scan the previous one, we will send the link via email. That's all right. And we're going to send the link for this one too. So two really cool opportunities. One, get involved with the beta, try something new. It'll integrate all of your reviews, your loyalty, your lifecycle marketing into a couple of simple flows is the goal there, and use a little bit more AI processes. And then the plays library, you can use that right now. It can take about 10 minutes to implement some of these plays. They're really quick. All right, shall we move into Q&A now? We had a really good one from Hannah during the chat, so I will ask it and let yourselves, Heather and Dan, answer it. So let me pull it up here. What is a good strategy for setting up a repurchase or behavioral customer flow with limited customer data? We don't have enough individualized data due to the majority of our sales being in store, but we're hoping to move repeat customers online. And then the second bit of context is primarily brick and mortar. E-com site has been live for about a year and they sell beauty and spa products, mostly wholesale, but e-com leans towards retail. Thoughts on this, Heather and Deb?
Okay, I'll take a first stab at it, and then Dan will have some really, I'm sure, helpful context from a Klaviyo lens. My first thought is, obviously with wholesale, it's hard because you're kind of barred from all the customer data. Same with Amazon. The goal eventually is just to get everybody to buy from your site directly. So we can do that by encouraging loyalty behaviors and having a really involved loyalty program that encourages people to earn points buying directly from your site, signing up to the email list. There's also some other interesting strategies I'm thinking off the top of my head. We have a customer, Graza, if you're familiar with the olive oil, really cool D2C brand. They actually have a repeat QR code directly on their olive oil bottles. So you can scan it when you're shopping in the grocery store, and it's going to pull up that repeat cart experience to allow you to just check out online, which allows the brand, obviously, to get so much more customer data. You could even market a discount, maybe make it a little bit cheaper in cart to kind of push conversion there. So that would be a big undertaking to add QR codes to products, but that's one way I could see kind of combating the wholesaler retailer dilemma there and getting people to shop D2C with you. Also, if you have your own brick and mortar stores, I think was the question I'd asked. I think you said you do. So, integrating that Shopify POS data directly into Klaviyo, I'm sure Dan can speak to that, having a sign up form, for somebody to opt into email when they're purchasing in store. Otherwise, if it's like a big box retailer, obviously that problem hasn't been solved for yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely jump in here, Heather. I thought those were great answers, and honestly, I probably will just kind of build on these. I know you mentioned specifically, that POS data, that point of sale. Of course, right, there are a number of POS systems out there, and not everyone uses, say some of the most popular ones. So a lot of this may determine, which POS system you actually have. But if you're using something, like a Shopify POS or any of those other major POS providers, we do have a number of integrations with them that do pass data back, especially if they are within that individual brick and mortar store that you own. This, again, like Heather mentioned, is still kind of an imperfect science, especially if you're on maybe one of those other POS systems, or again, like it's a big box retailer. We always recommend, if there's any opportunity to collect data in store, like Heather said, those QR codes, I know that people are playing around with, apps or integrations like geolocation or geo-targeting, things of that nature. But if there's any way for you to collect in-store data, even if it's something as simple as, employees with an iPad collecting information, anything is better than nothing. And then as we start to send out those emails, even with really, really, what's the right word? Not necessarily super deep behavioral data, as we implore people to click on our emails and interact with the buttons and images and products within the email itself, and then of course on site if possible, that will then allow us to actually update those individual profiles of those shoppers and start to allow us to really start to pick out some of those other data opportunities, like which of these segments clicks on these types of products more often than others. It's really kind of about creating that foundation and then slowly building up on top of it, which then allows us to have a waterfall. I will stop there. I could probably talk about this a little bit more, but always happy to take this offline and talk about it even more granularly after the session, but definitely a great question.
Awesome. The next one is kind of related. How can we make emails relevant today when every brand is flooding our inbox? How can I differentiate?
I could probably start off here, Heather, if that's okay. And I'm looking at the time so I don't talk for 25 minutes. When we think about email differentiation, you're right. There's definitely a saturation within a specific channel. This is why we believe, not just at Klaviyo, but with a number of our partners, that expanding that surface area, those channel surface area, right, in your surface collection area of how we are signing new people up into email, into SMS, allows us to pick and get, like we mentioned in this last question, those additional data insights, which can allow us to differentiate ourselves, not just in the inbox itself, but also within other channels, right? So for example, if we know that we have someone who's signed up for email and SMS, right? Let's say Heather is a multi-channel signed up profile. If we see that Heather is not interacting with any of our emails, flash sales, abandoned cards, promos, but she loves going through SMS or loves even being retargeted on Meta, we should definitely not send Heather more emails and lean into SMS specifically and skip some of those larger sends so that we're not just like blasting the inbox and adding to maybe that massive bloat within an individual's inbox when they're not necessarily being targeted specifically. So I think the cop-out answer here is any type of additional data, any type of subject line that can be personalized allows us to, again, have maybe a 2 or 3% increase in advantage compared to another platform or another merchant. And those 2 or 3%, that could be thousands of dollars in revenue. So we want to go for those small incremental lifts within our channels rather than trying to have a massive overhaul of everything we do. That's my not so short TLDR. And Heather, I'll pass it over to you.
No, I think you nailed it. I think the channel affinity piece in Klaviyo is so key. Let's speak to our customers on the channel they're telling us they respond best on. And as we kind of talked through some of the customer examples, is using the behavioral data and like loyalty information. You shouldn't send the same email to one of your VIP top customers as a net new customer. And not everybody responds the same. Most shoppers, might lean towards only purchasing with discount, but let's try to single out who those are and make it more dynamic where we don't have to batch and blast promotions to everyone. That's a big piece of the new stamp platform, is thinking about how to more dynamically target people and maybe not do that blanket discounting and think of loyalty in kind of a new way, and make sure your content, is specific to individual customer segments.
Awesome. All right, Kat has a really good question in the chat. Any retention tactics for a luxury jewelry brand that doesn't discount or run promotions? Most of these examples were CPG D2C, which isn't entirely relevant to us.
Heather, you want to start off? Or you want me to dive in?
I gotta think on it for a second, but you go ahead. I'm so CPG focused right now.
Oh, that's totally cool. And this is a great question. I've actually gotten this question a lot, specifically about jewelry. And one thing I'll do is I can definitely follow up with you, Kat, afterward on some of those individual case studies that we have for some of our jewelry brands on Klaviyo, so that maybe there's inspiration there. I would say when we think about luxury jewelry, right, compared to CPG, what are the key differentiators? Of course, like price, quality of product, repurchase rate, all of that is pretty low hanging fruit when we think about those two individual categories. I would say, especially when someone doesn't want to, or brand doesn't want to discount based on their brand image, totally understand, right? That's a key aspect of how you're going to market as a merchant. I would say when we think about promotions, promotions don't necessarily need to just be for, percent or economic value off of a product, right? So when I think of like a luxury jewelry promotion, I think of, hey, how can we understand who are our absolute best customers that buy from us early, often, and at a high volume? And then what are the other signals, like we've spoken about, whether where they are in their loyalty program, whether what they do in store versus digitally? And what I like to do is I always love to recommend, how do we create that like VIP of VIP segments and maybe offer them something that we could never offer a non-VIP or a non-high spending customer, high lifetime value customer, just based on ROI and maybe it being something that doesn't scale, right? So for example, when I was back on our agency side, I worked with an agency that worked with a luxury jewelry brand that actually offered in-store bespoke one-on-one like, what's the right word? Concierge shopping, which went from SMS to then an in-store 30-minute or 45-minute bespoke experience where they used SMS as like a concierge to understand what they were really interested in, what they've been interested in the past. And then when they actually came into that store and they used a number of other pieces of targeting, like proximity to a brick and mortar location, they had a one-to-one experience where an associate already had a number of those pieces ready for them and gave them a really granular bespoke experience that they just simply can't do for all of their customers. I know that's just one particular example, but those are the things that I like to think about, especially when we can't run a particular money off promotion. How do we give something so exclusive and then tell everyone else about its exclusivity so that it can then become a hero opportunity to get people into that high spending segment? I could probably go on about this for a long time. I will pause here. Those are kind of my key thoughts, but I'll definitely noodle on this one a little bit more and definitely send some of those case study examples as well. But I love to think about that type of opportunity rather than just money off, right? Exclusive products, exclusive sessions, things of that nature. Heather, would love to hear what you have to say as well.
That's honestly exactly the thought I was having as a VIP program that isn't about discounting. It's more, hey, you're in this exclusive club with us. You're, a trusted customer. We want to release new products early to you, or obviously get free shipping or make the returns really simple or fittings, that kind of thing. And also just kind of creating that bespoke in-person shopping experience online where I was just looking at the site. If somebody orders something from the Marrakesh collection, send a really tailored email with a follow-up of here's some products to complete that set for you, with some really good content, like social proof, that kind of thing. Just kind of cross-selling within collections and just getting more specific and offering that like concierge kind of service.
And one thing I'll also mention, not to beat a dead horse, is what's cooler than like an exclusive tier that people can't just like get access to, right? Like I think of, the American Express Black Card, for example, right? Everyone knows it exists, but getting there is kind of up in the air, right? But people want to get to that tier because of that exclusivity. There's a lot of that opportunity to create those digital experiences, even without the in-person bespoke opportunity. So that's where I would really lean in, get more granular rather than more. That's kind of my last piece there.
At Stamped, we actually have a case study coming out about that in the next couple weeks. So we've been working with an amazing jewelry brand recently who wanted to tackle a very similar issue using loyalty. So, Kat, I'll add you to the email list when we distribute that to make sure that you have your hands on it too. All right, next question is from Kimberly. Can you explain the Klaviyo Customer Hub and what that's used for?
Yes, absolutely. So we didn't highlight that here because Customer Hub is still a beta product for us here at Klaviyo. I will just throw this link in the chat if that's okay, if people are interested in what that actually looks like, because there is some, visualization when we think about Customer Hub. But when we think about Customer Hub, it's really a signed-in experience, which allows a merchant to overlay key information right on the homepage of a flyout experience, right? So for example, Customer Hub is an overlay onto a Shopify website powered by Klaviyo and integration data that has the opportunity for someone to click in the top right-hand corner and have a flyout, which then can surface things like loyalty point data for that individual person, right? So for example, if we know that they're just away from getting to that VIP tier and Stamped, or some of our other integration partners in the future when this goes into a full public release, we want to make sure that we're showing that to them on all aspects of the site, right? Hey, you've reached this tier, use these points now, copy this into your next purchase and get money off. Or your order is out for delivery, you have an upcoming subscription. We see Customer Hub as a great opportunity to lean into the service aspect here at Klaviyo. And again, just surfacing that integration data and surfacing that other behavioral data right there on the site, giving an awesome customer experience while allowing the merchant to have a much more, what's the right word? Engaged experience on their site, especially when we have people logging in to get this experience. So that's a very, very, very quick TLDR. Highly recommend checking out the link in the chat as well to see what Customer Hub's all about. And we, of course, will send some more information in our follow-up as well, but great question.
All right, I think we have time for two more. We'll do one quick that I think all three of us can answer very quickly. I need to improve my email deliverability. What steps should I take? I'll go first. A small list of people who have double opted in and responded to emails is way better than a huge list of people who aren't engaged with email. So start with cleaning your list, look for activity, look for opt-ins. Heather, what's your tip for email deliverability?
Ooh, fun fact, I actually got my start in e-commerce as a sales rep at Klaviyo, and this was the biggest, once a Klaviyo, always a Klaviyo. Deliverability was huge, and it was absolutely suppressing profiles when necessary, when they're not engaging with you, and clearly have churned, kind of keeping that list super clean. You're better off sending to that super engaged list than a batch and blast to a unengaged list, for sure.
100%. I mean, I definitely double tap everything you both said there as well. I would also think about of course, when you start off, that warming process is, of course, such an important aspect of this. But of course, right, you can't just go back and rewarm again. Leaning into the data, right? Thinking about what are the partners that allow you to get there. We have a number of partners in our ecosystem that allow you to have more granular data, whether it's with loyalty, whether it's with some of our segmentation partners, things of that nature. It's all about, again, not batch and blasting, getting right to the point and having that message for the right audience at the right time on the right channel as well.
Awesome. With our final minute, rapid fire. What's your favorite flow? Go. Hosts, what do you say? People in the chat, what do you say? I'm curious.
Ooh, replenishment reminder for sure.
I kind of already sold the bag on this. I already said a really great welcome series, but honestly, I think I'll say an espresso shot flow, which is based on the espresso shot segment for people who are super engaged within 72 hours and gets right to the point. Highly recommended for BFCM.
Amazing. We have two more votes in the chat for welcome flow. Oh, we have an abandoned cart too. this is a hot topic. We could host a whole webinar just on this, I think. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your day to chat with us about this. We're going to follow up with a fair few resources on our side via email. So recording all the tactics that we talked about today. If you asked a one-on-one question, we'll make sure that we follow up with you too. Reach out to us. You have our emails as well from those follow-ups if you have extra questions. And thank you, Dan. Thank you, Heather, for presenting today.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Talk soon.